All right, so I apologize that I'm not in class. First things first, the sub should have read you a note that said the test got moved from today, Wednesday, to Friday. I realized I was a day ahead somehow. I don't know. I have no clue. We were rocking and rolling. So compared to where the other geometry classes are, since we were a day ahead, I did go ahead and decide to move the test till Friday. So the tests, the concept assessment and the Cougar Path version 2 will both be on Friday. So you just spent about 30 to 40 minutes working on these 3 CERs and then answering that last question of what do you think makes a good CER and what should your reasoning include? So what I'd like to actually do is I'd actually like to go over these with you. Unfortunately, we're not going to have the give and take that we normally do. As you are looking at your work and watching the video, press pause as you need to so that you can go through, make changes, do anything differently that you may need to do. I will ask questions, press pause, answer it in your head how you think you would answer. And then at the end of this, I will give you instructions on how to upload your work to Schoology, because you will need to upload your work to Schoology, indicating that you actually have done the work. So that's going to be an important part of today. So, all right. Alvin, Simon, Theodore live in a straight line in that order. Therefore, they are considered collinear points. Alvin lives at the point 5,2, and Simon, who is halfway between Alvin and Theodore, lives at point -1, -4. At what coordinate does Theodore live? So in our claim, evidence, and reasoning, we need to have a claim. We need to say, and our claim should answer the question, at what coordinates does Theodore live? So what did you do? How did you approach this problem? Okay, so some of you might have said, okay, the first thing that I did, PK, is I went ahead and I graphed my points. And the Apple Pencil is not connected to the Apple iPad because I had to restart the iPad so that I could connect the iPad to my computer so I could Zoom and show you all of this at the same time. It's complicated. And I swore I wasn't going to make any videos this year, and here I am, I'm out. So I'm making you a lovely video explanation of these 3 problems. All right. So the first thing I did is I went ahead and I graphed my points. So I'm going to graph this one. I'm going to label this one as Alvin because Alvin lives at 5,2. So over 5 up 2. And then I'm going to identify where Theodore lives at -1, -4. No, that's not Theodore. You are right. Good job if you stop me. And that is Simon lives at this point, and this is considered halfway. So we're going to label this S for Simon. So I asked the other classes I went through this is how did you figure out where Simon lived? We know Alvin, we know Simon, and Theodore. So what do we know about Simon? Simon is halfway between. So that means Simon is a midpoint. Now we're starting to translate the real world halfway between into the mathematical terminology. So that means Alvin is an endpoint. So that means I need to find the second endpoint. So I went ahead, and the way I solved this is I went down 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So I went down 6 points, and then I went over 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 to the left. So if I'm going to find the second endpoint, I'm going to do this the same way. I'm going to go down 6. And then I'm going to go left 6. And that new point will be Theodore, and that is my second endpoint. And that would mean my claim is that Theodore lives at the coordinates -7, -10. Claim. Claim is nothing more than the answer. What's my evidence in this problem? You're right. This is evidence. This is how I solve the problem. Okay. Evidence could also be, some of you may have used the midpoint formula. So if you remember midpoint formula, is adding your x1 and your x1 and your x2 and divided by 2, and adding your y1 and your y2 and dividing it by 2. So if you remember, I can plug in the coordinates of my midpoint, -1, -4, and 5, 2, to find my missing xy. So -1 equals 5 plus x over 2, and -4 equals 2 plus y over 2, and you can solve from there. So we've already now identified our claim, where Theodore lives, our evidence, how we got that answer, and now we have our reasoning. Since Simon lives halfway between, that's B/N is between Theodore and Alvin, Simon is located at the midpoint. Thus, we found the second endpoint. This would be a perfectly acceptable 5. I tell you now, one of the things that's crucial in this is making sure that we use the vocabulary that's attached to the math. So halfway is a word that we use to describe midpoint. So we use the word halfway in our everyday speech, and midpoint is the geometrical term. So extending our knowledge. So if nobody used the word a midpoint, they probably wouldn't earn a 5 on the rubric. Maybe they'd earn a 4 if they had everything else 100% correct. But that 4 to 5 in meeting expectations is that explanation that involves using the vocabulary of the problem. All right. Number 2 stumped first period. So I'm wondering if number 2 stumped you guys at all. And part of it stumped them is because I changed names and then I forgot to change names in the rest of the problem. So I'm going to fix that. Pam is not walking anywhere. This is our friend Blue. Blue is a person. And they are walking from their house to their friend's house. And then from their friend's house to CT. So this is kind of a convoluted problem. So starting at this problem, the first thing that we can do is probably plot the points that we know. Where's Blue's house? You're correct. Blue's house is here. Where does the friend live? The friend lives at 6, 8. So to me, this is your friend's house, and then CT is at 13, 2. We'll use a C for CT. So the question that we're asking is how far? What does far indicate in the mathematical terminology? Yeah, far indicates that we're looking for distance. So we want the distance from Blue to the friend's house. All right, so let's draw that. Blue to the friend's house. Ooh, I don't like that line, sorry. Y'all know me. So we want to find this distance from Blue's to the friend's house. Does this remind us of anything we've done in the past? You're right. We're going to drop our vertical. We're going to drop our horizontal. And we're going to identify that this distance is 8. This distance is 6. So that means now we can find BF. So BF squared, because that's the distance, is 6 squared plus 8 squared. So 36 plus 64, or 100. So to undo squaring, we square root it. So that means the distance BF is 10. Now, I didn't give units. I apologize. I didn't actually make up this problem. I'll fool you on that one. So there are no units. So we can't say that this is blocks or miles or anything like that. We're just saying that it's 10. All right. After we find the distance from blue to the friend's house, from the friend, where are we heading? Yep, from the friend, we are heading to Cherokee Trail. So now we have another triangle that helps me find the distance from the friend's house to CT, this FC. So that vertical distance is 6, horizontal distance is 7. So that means FC squared is 7 squared plus 6 squared, or 49 plus 36, or 85. So square root both sides. FC equals the square root of 85. Now, I don't know about you guys, but maybe you asked the question, how do I simplify radicals? How does PK want me to write my answer? When I look at this problem, I see it as a word problem, like a real life problem. I can actually find out how far blue walks if they walk to their friend's house and then walk to CT to find the total distance that this blue person walks each day on their way to school. So based on this, since it is a real life problem, it's pseudo made up, but it's a real life problem, I actually want to use a decimal approximation. It doesn't make sense to tell somebody, go walk square root of 85. That doesn't make any sense. But it does make sense if you tell somebody to walk whatever the square root of 85 is, and I'm pulling out my handy dandy calculator while I'm stalling for time. But 85. Square root of 85 is 9.22. So 9.22. So that means, what is my total distance? So total distance walked is 19.22, whatever those units are. So there's my claim. The green comment is my claim. That's the total distance. My work is up here. And then what's going to be my reasoning? Why did I do what I wanted to? I was asked how far blue walked. Thus, I found the distance sorry. I found the distance blue walked from home to the friends and from friends to CT and added them. That would be a decent enough reasoning. The reasoning is why. Why did we do the distance formula? Well, we did the distance formula because I got asked how far, and how far means due distance. It doesn't ask for a midpoint, does it? Okay. Last one. All right. Joe lives at 10.5 and Sarah lives at 16.7. Joe and Sarah want to meet directly in the middle of their two houses. At what coordinates should Joe and Sarah meet? Write your solution as a CER. The grid may be helpful, but does not have to be used. All right, so the other class liked the grid. We skipped counted by 2 to label 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16. So Joe is at 10.5, so up 2, 4, 5, smack dab in the middle. This is Joe. Sarah's at 16.7, 2, 4, 6, 7. So we know they're going to meet somewhere right in the middle. So we just need to know where the middle is. So if I have Joe and Sarah are our endpoints. Absolutely. There are endpoints, so we need to find our midpoint. So one method that we've used is we've used this whole triangle method, haven't we? So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So there's 6 apart. So 3 would be right here. And then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So halfway is 2, or actually 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. So halfway here. That means our midpoint is at 13.9. We could also use the midpoint formula, where we're going to go 10 plus 16 over 2 and 5 plus 7 over 2, which is 26 over 2. And that feels wrong. 5 plus 7 is 12 over 2, which means our midpoint should be 13.6. Did I mess something up in my graph? Sarah, I've got Sarah's graph. Let's erase this. Let's try this again. No, I'm not going to get rid of this on the video. I have Joe right. Sarah's wrong. Sarah's at 16.7. So 2, 4, 6. This is where Sarah is. So this is where my midpoint is. Right there. Okay. So the midpoint formula is probably the easiest with this one because of the graph. All right. There's my claim and my evidence. What's my reasoning? Middle of their houses means I need to find the midpoint. So I used the midpoint formula to do this. Questions so far? Hopefully this makes some sense. All right, last but not least, what do you think makes a good CER? So my other class, we identified claim. Okay, claim was your answer. Without any evidence. It's just the answer. Okay, it's your answer without any evidence. Okay, your evidence in the case of a math problem, this is going to be your math work. It could be a graph, like in number 1. Okay, number 1 was definitely graphical. You did not need to use the formulas. Somebody might have used the formulas. Okay, so it could be a graph. It could be an equation. It could be a calculation. Any and all of these things could be considered part of your evidence. Okay, the reasoning. The reasoning answers the question why. So your reasoning is, why did you do the math you did? So your claim really answers the question what. Evidence answers the question how, and reasoning answers the question why. Okay. What should reasoning include? we should definitely have math vocabulary. If you want to earn the 5 out of 5, then translating the real world problem into math vocabulary or answering using math vocabulary is going to be a crucial part of that. Okay, so now you have your work on your worksheet. Looks like this. Mine's blank. This is what the sub's going to pass out. You have a front and a back. So what I'm going to ask you guys to do is I'm going to ask you to take your phones. You will need your phones. I don't know if you can do this on your Chromebooks, but you're going to take your phone. You're going to take a picture of the front of your work. You're going to turn it around. You're going to take a picture of the back of your work. Okay. From there, you can either use the Schoology app or you can use the online. But if you use the Schoology app, I'll show you where this is in our third 3A class. 4A, you're going to be the same. You're going to go to Unit 1. You're going to go down to CER assignment 9-8. That's today. Now, obviously, I don't have the same look that you guys did, but what you guys are going to do, let's see, yeah, I can't. I wonder if I can look at it this way, if I pop it out. But you can go in here, and then what you are going to do in your CER assignment is under your submissions, you are going to upload those 2 pictures of the front of your work and the back of your work into the CER assignment. That's where your classwork grade for today is going to come from. Okay. If you do have questions, talk to the classmates sitting around you. I know a lot of you uploaded work last year, so I'm guessing and hoping that you guys will be able to take care of that for me. So you're going to upload your work in there. From there, okay, class is almost over. Use the additional time to study. Delta Math, great place to get extra problems. Compare your note sheet with somebody sitting next to you. Are you missing something? Do you have everything that you need? Ask each other those questions. Use your time wisely to study. Okay. I will be here before school on Friday from about 7:45 till 8:10. And then first period starts and I will be giving the test. The other place that you can go is you can go to the CRC and seek out extra help as well. Please feel free to email me if you have individual questions. I'll be around. I'll be checking emails. I just have to take my son to the doctor. So thank you guys for following along. Thank you for watching the video. Thank you for working today. I appreciate you. Please behave for the sub. Please, please, please. All right. I'll see you guys on Friday. Bye.